Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, let's start. So first of all, my apologies about what happened. So the problem that the maximum number for people joining is 250. So all people joined the meeting. So even for myself, I couldn't join the meeting. Even I am the organizer. This was not even expected for me. But it seems even now logic, but I was not expecting that. Because actually the people that uh, confirm the meeting is around 200, but the invitation sent for more than 700. So it seems there is some people joining which they didn't confirm their joining. So this is a problem. So at the end is I couldn't join. So what I did is I just create a new meeting and then try to send that. So again, even I couldn't send the invite for people because my email blocked to send all this number. So when I try to send that, the email blocked. So again, even will be a good experience for me because I think it will bring the same idea I took. If some people attend my first session, I talk about the importance of being connected, and because we don't have a central point of view or people, and this is why my central point of view I updated with a new link to the event in the Facebook. But anyway, this is the case for people that they want to understand. My apologies for that. Again, I couldn't do any. It just the meeting reached the maximum. Okay, so let me start. So let me share my screen, and please let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yes, I can see.
Okay. Okay, so let me start by quickly giving a introduction about myself for people that they don't know me. So my name is Muhammad Radwan. I have been doing software development for more than 17 years, moving from different role and position. And for the last 8 years, I focused on consultancy-based role, where I helped more than uh, 50 companies or 50 enterprise customers, some of them from the Fortune 500. And I relocated for many countries, and eventually I am in the UK, London based. As a part of the community, I have contribution for many contribution on GitHub and Azure Marketplace, and I have my YouTube channel and blog, and I have delivered many sessions in many conferences. So I got the chance and the opportunity to work on different project size and company size as well. Okay, for the quick code of conduct, I will not. So I again, I will recommend that people. It's better that you go and read in detail the code of conduct. But let me go through it very quickly. So the first is that every session is recorded. So if you don't like to be recorded, please leave the session now. Please respect everyone, no matter what is the religion or the gender or the age. So, and we don't discuss any of that. Mic is all off all the time, please. You just open the mic want, when you are speaking, and just turn it off immediately after you finish. Our central point of communication is a Facebook. So again, and this is even if we look at the problem of today, we can solve most of the problem if people communicating to the same central point. I divided the community in two groups for now, Group A and Group B. Group A will structure and Group B is responsive. And for we will get more introduction about that. You can read more about that in the page. Priority question, this is for Group B, because Group B is more responsive and open discussion at any point of time. So usually there is a priority question which is related to all what I did before, for any contribution I did before, like my videos, my books, my anything of my contribution. But just for group B as well, because it's open discussion, so try to avoid asking the same question again and again, like how to become a DevOps engineer, how to change the career, because it's the same question. I want to answer this question and have, agree about that. We can even in the open discussion get agreement, open the door for other opinion, and then we will leave that. So people would like to to know this question or this answer, they just can get back to this conversation. So for group B also, we will work on open source project, and please fill the survey. It's very important to improve. And for group B also, it's very good that you can ask or prepare your question upfront and send them, in a time enough to send to get that and get the vote from everyone on group or people to the most questions that they would like to get answered during the meeting. Discussion is not monitored during the meeting, so if I'm, because I get some of the feedback that so there is no uh, monitor for the discussion or moderation. Please, again, everything in the FAQ. So everything in the FAQ, and you just can use it to get answer for all your questions. Okay, this is the details, and of course, I'm not going to do that. So again, your support is really needed and appreciated. So what we are doing here, as I explained before, maybe for people that they don't know, so we're doing here in this community is mentoring, open source, studying groups, certificates, tips and tricks, and also job recommendation. So more community champions. Our goal is to not just having, being people in MVP, but also to make more community champion of you. So, and this is again, is how we promoting you to be participated in the community. So number of surveys and result. Yeah, so I reach it to 700 registered and from 40 countries, and this is what caused the problem again. The number of people try to join the meeting at the same time. Again, I will try to think about something we can sort it out how to manage that. Again, I think from my point of view, keeping connected on the same point of view or the same central point, which is a Facebook page, and also by confirming your meeting that you are attend. I completely understand. Sometimes you will confirm, but you couldn't. That's fine, no problem. But it's really great to understand who is going to join and who is not, so we don't have this problem again. The importance of community and networking. So why community? Again, beside learning and other things, community is a platform. And people who are, for many things. So people who is looking for job and for hiring manager that notice and trust people. So it's really, for this is the community. It's a platform for you. I'm trying to get this opportunity for this gathering with 700 people from from more than 40 countries is to just using this network, to help each other. So it is not just a session that you can just attend. So keep connected. And again, everything in the Facebook. So please make sure that you are connected, read the FAQ very well, actively participate for the survey and the meeting. Can you please mute your so yes, everything in the Facebook. So try please to make sure that you get connected and know all the information with the update, because usually there is some updates in regular basis. I would like to really recognize and really give a big thank you for Mustafa Monaim, because he did he answered the quiz correctly, the only one. Actually, only 10 people answered the quiz, but he's the only one that answered that. So as I explained, we are divided to two groups. Today is a group for session A. and there is other group for group B. So the main idea is group A, which is today, is more structured because again, based on the survey, it's like 80%, I will say even 90% of people would like well-structured session with well-defined agenda and a scope for questions. So this is what I'm trying to do, and this is why I take the decision for that. So again, please make sure to read more about the difference between two groups. I will re-evaluate, the groups from time to time, and maybe divided them to more groups and two more groups, or it will be, usually along the way. Exam voucher and Azure subscription. I will have some exam voucher or discount sometimes, and I'm trying also to get Azure subscription. I'm trying to connect with Microsoft to get some of that. I can't promise or I can't give any word about it. It's just, to understand. So what I will try is to get some either voucher or subscription and give it for people that, for example, contributing or, answer quiz and so on. So there is upcoming session, which is, for example, DevOps open source and open QA. This will be the next Saturday. And there is other session which will be in also the Saturday in 16. This is for group A and this is for group B. And as you can see, the session will be here. Your support is really appreciated. Okay, let's start for the session for today. Okay. So let's start what we will cover today. Our agenda today, we will give a quick introduction about Kubernetes and then understand what is the structure of Kubernetes, like pods in Kubernetes and the node as well. And then we will have an introduction about AKS or Azure Kubernetes Service. And then we will understand the difference with and without AKS or Azure Kubernetes Service, like how to work with Kubernetes with and without. And then after that, we will get an introduction about Azure Container Registry. And we will get an overview about the end-to-end Kubernetes CI/CD pipeline. So this includes, of course, creating the DevOps project, creating the Azure pipeline, Kubernetes extension, and many others. So what is Kubernetes? So again, the story begins. I think it's better to start from the beginning. The story begins when companies start moving from the waterfall development to agile and DevOps. All the companies and would like to speed up the delivery of the value for the end user and the customer. And this lead to, or it has many obstacles actually, but one of them, and I'm not going to cover all of them, or I'm not going to talk about them, but one of them is one of the major this challenges or obstacle is a monolithic application. I can give you some example from experience. I have many projects where, we had the very large project. I remember one of the project that they usually doing the build at night, like when they leaving the company, they start running the build, which took like around maybe 6 or 7 hours. And usually after the build complete, it automates the deployment to the QA machines. So the QA team can, at the morning, they can just start working to testing the application. And guess what? In many days, the build and deployment fail, and the QA team, they don't have anything to work with. So again, there is many stories about monolithic application and the problems. But as I usually say, like you usually solve a problem, but bring more problems or bring not problems, but I will say challenges. So monolithic application. So what was the solution? The solution is all about breaking down. this. Any question? So the solution is how to break down this monolithic application into small pieces or small parts. So this is why if we look at the monolithic application, for example, it's just usually is a single application that run, as a monolithic application that run in a single process. And usually we deploy that to either a VM or a container. And if we want to replicate that, we just need to replicate that on a different server or VM or container. But when we're looking on the microservice approach, it's all about the segregation of the business functionality across different independent service. And this is the most important. So, and you deploy that independently on either VM or container, you just choose the platform. But the main idea is the replication, the scaling is independently on any, either VM or container, or so it independently scaling up on different components. And this leads to also moving from horizontal, layers into vertical layer, which helped the team to move from the architecture team, like for example, or the horizontal team to the vertical team. So for example, in the horizontal team, you can find the UI team is working on all components like email, voice, TV, the API working on all the component of the application, the data. So it's only one team that work of all that. So, but when we're talking about feature team, which is a vertical team, you have one component, and with each component, you have many people, you have just people working on each part of the component. So in this email, you have the UI, the APIs, the data, and the other component. So you start having that vertical team, which gave us the ability, to manage that. And again, we would like again to speed up the value to the end user and the customers. So this lead to, the segregation of the application. And instead of having monolithic application, we may end up, as you can see, with a huge bunch of microservices. And again, we solve one problem, or not one problem. I don't like the problem, but sometimes maybe because I'm used to, we solve some of the challenges, not a problem. But again, these microservices or this number of microservices, it, it bring some other challenges, which is increase the complexity of managing that services or microservices. So is there a real example? Yes. If we look at Amazon or Netflix, you can see that this is, for example, the microservices for both of them. And as you can see, this is in each dot is a microservices for both of them. So when we're talking about how we are going to hosting that, so are we going to host each microservices in a VM, but this will be like really huge, huge for consuming a lot of resources, with no need. So the alternative, it was the container. And this again, bringing us, so how we are going to manage all this container, like I'm going to orchestrate all these containers. So how I'm going, for example, working with container and the node and, clustering and start managing which container run on which node and so on. So the orchestration and the managing of this bunch of microservices containers or containers application, how I'm going to do that. And this lead to Kubernetes. So as you understand the story behind the scenario, so this is a Kubernetes. Kubernetes is an open source system for orchestrating, automating deployment, scaling, and managing of containerized application. So it's help you to deploy your application quickly and predictably, because it's improved reliability because it continuously monitor and manage your containers. It will also scale your application to handle the change in the load because the people is hitting more on the fly as needed. So it's very dynamic, which means that this provides a better usage of the infrastructure. And of course, the cost if you're using that infrastructure. It also coordinates, which container run and where, and across all the orchestration system. and how these containers talk to each other. So this is a Kubernetes. This is why it provides a lot of capabilities and feature, either portability, extensibility, and self-healing. So let's talk about what is a pod. So pod is the core components of Kubernetes. So it is a Kubernetes abstraction and logical representation of the atomic unit of Kubernetes. So it can contain one or more containers, and other resources that shared or used by these containers. For example, in our example here, I have one containers in pod 1, and I have here in pod 2, I have a container and volume, which is a storage access storage area. And here I have two containers using a shared resources, which is a volume. And here we have, even as you can see, we have more than 3 containers and 2 volume for sharing that. And with each pod, it has a networking unique cluster IP and information on how to run each container, such as a container image version, specific ports, and so on, is with each pod. So the summary, pod is the atomic unit on Kubernetes platform when we create a deployment on Kubernetes. Okay, containers, pods, and scheduling. As we understand now that containers must wrapped or be inside a pod or on Kubernetes, let's get more in details about the pod from inside. So pod is just, you can think of it as just an isolated area of the operating system, which has a network. For example, as you can see, the local host here. So this is for communication. This example, for example, it also can have some namespaces that can be used within this pod, and usually it can run a single container or a closely coupled container can run together in the same pod. So it is also the minimum unit of scheduling. Just imagine that if you want to schedule to run a component on the node, then the minimum unit to run is the pod, not the container. The same also for scaling up. You don't scale your application by adding more or more or less container to your application, but by just adding or removing more pods of your application or your orchestration system. So I think a single pod can only be scheduled to a single node, regardless of the number of containers. As we now understand the pods, let's talk more about the node. So what is the node? As you can see now the node has more than one pods, right? So the node is the worker machine in Kubernetes and can be either virtual or a physical machine. So, just this is the infrastructure, the actual infrastructure. So if we talking about pod is a logical container, a logical space, pod node is a physical component. So a node can have multiple pods, and the Kubernetes master automatically handle scheduling the pods across nodes in the cluster. Okay. So to just get more about the Kubernetes operating cluster of nodes. So each node, because the node, again, just think of node as a machine, So each node has its running time environment for container. For example, in node 1, it has the Docker runtime. For example, in node 5, we have another container runtime. Again, it's based on the software for containerization that you install or you configure this node for. So, and this is, for example, if you have an image from one containerization application, then you run that on the node that and again, this is the beauty of the Kubernetes. It will manage this orchestration for you. So what is AKS, or Azure Kubernetes Service? So it's a fully managed Kubernetes orchestration. Again, just to give you a very quick idea. Now you understand Kubernetes is. So Kubernetes, which you can see now, it's just an infrastructure as a service, right? So what is the AKS? It will provide you or bring you the Azure, the Kubernetes instead of working with Kubernetes as an infrastructure as a service, it will be platform as a service or PaaS solutions. So you will get the benefit of Kubernetes as a, all this orchestration system and the open source and all of that. But instead of having the overhead to work with Kubernetes as an infrastructure as a service, you will work with Kubernetes as a platform as a service, which means that more abstraction, more manageable and easy, less overhead to manage that. So this is why with AKS, you can deploy and manage Kubernetes with very easy, because again, you are abstracted from the actual configuration of the AKS, the Kubernetes itself. You don't interact with the infrastructure of Kubernetes. You interact with the platform as a service. So you can scale up and down, very confident. Again, because it's not your problem if you this will be the problem of the cloud providers that provide that, which is in our case in AKS is Microsoft Azure. Of course, it's secure because it's on Azure platform, which is really very high security. And of course, this will accelerate the development because, by reducing this overhead or, like just removing this overhead, you give yourself more about focusing on developing and more on the value for developing the application. So you can, of course, set up a CI/CD. Okay, so Kubernetes with and without AKS. So when we look at Kubernetes without AKS, we can see that the nodes is divided to two types of nodes. As you can see, the control plane, which has the master nodes, and this is like the controller, like MVC, any controller. And so here, this is the control plane has the master node, which controlling on the agent pool or the nodes, like this is actual node. This is what hold. But for example, the master node is not holding the pods. The master node just for managing and controlling the agent. So we have here the control plane and the agent pool. But with Kubernetes, with AKS or Azure Kubernetes Service, it's all about that there is a hosted control plane. So you will be fully abstracted from the master nodes and the control plane because it's fully hosted by Azure. No master nodes to manage or pay for. It's very easily to upgrade. So you can, I will show you that in the demo, how very easily you can upgrade the AKS. It's either for adding more nodes or removing nodes, or either for for updating the version of Kubernetes. So it's very easy to scale up and upgrade. Azure Container Registry. So the Azure Container Registry, it's all about the repository of storing your I will show you now the modern engineering practices. And usually when we build our application, we usually, instead of build deploy, we build store deploy. So Azure Container Registry will provide a repository to store your containerization image, no matter what is the containerization technology, or it support different containerization technology. So you can just push and pull images from this repository. Any questions so far?
No questions. Thanks, Mohammed.
So with Azure DevOps and having the pipeline and the AKS and Azure Container Registry, we can have a full, like life cycle of managing the AKS or Kubernetes life cycle. So to just give you this idea, because it's very important about the end-to-end delivery. So when we code and build unit test, packaging the application, and then provision the environment, and then deploy the application. Again, but this is the old approach. So the modern engineering that you have to store your package on the storage area before you deploy. So later in other stage, you can just pull the package from the storage. Sorry. You can pull the package from the storage and just deploy that to the other environment after the provision. So you don't reduce that again. And of course, you can run so let's here focus on the end-to-end life cycle that I'm going to show you now. So to just give you an idea, This is the component that we will work or we will see in some of them, which is the Azure Container Registry for storing Docker image, AKS, which is the Docker image for deploying pods running inside AKS, and Azure SQL Server. So I will start the demo by creating the resource group, which will hold all my, all the cloud resources that I will create. After that, I will create an Azure Kubernetes service or provision an Azure Kubernetes service. And when I create that, and the first step is to just get the version of the last version of Kubernetes service, and then using that to create the provision, the Azure Kubernetes service. Just to let you know, this part is this provision environment. It could be also part of the continuous deployment pipeline. For example, if you get the previous slide when I'm talking about provisioning the environment. But again, to keep this demo more or much simpler, I just provision the environment manually. Some of the environment I will provision as a part of the CD, but not all of them. But again, everything can be automated at the end. So manually, I will using the command line or Azure Cloud Shell to provision the AKS. And by default, is this AKS will be configured with 3 nodes virtual machine. I will show you that in the demo. So once I have that, I will start provision the private container registry and then creating an Azure SQL and Azure database. Once we have that, just to think about the normal life cycle of software development, that developer working on their machine, they doing a change for the application, just in our case, we have an ASP.NET Core application. So just imagine again, they finish the complete the application and then they just push this change to the, to the repository or the source control repository on the cloud. Once this happen, if we're working with continuous integration, this means that the pipeline will automatically trigger the continuous integration pipeline. It's very important to understand from where, what is the start and the end of the pipeline of the CD. So what usually happen, or not usually, what will happen during the CD? So the first is that the pipeline will pull an image from a public registry that has, public registries that has many Docker image. And in our case, it's a ASP.NET Core image. Once they pull the image from the public registry, the pipeline will start building the application, run the unit testing and all of that. And then they start putting all this application on the image. So they commit these changes on the image and then tag the image with the build number. After that, the build will push the image to the private registry, because now I got a plain image, a plain ASP.NET Core image from a public registry. But again, I will not use public registry to deploy to my, no, I put all my application on that image and then push this image after, it's very important, after I tag the image with the version of the application, with the build number. So now my private registry has the container or the Docker image, which including my application. And after that, I will have the YAML file, which including the manifest of the Kubernetes deployment, that needed describe the infrastructure of the Kubernetes inside the AKS. I will store. Do you remember when I said you build package deploy store, right? So here in this point, I'm storing the YAML file on the Azure repository, Azure DevOps repository. And also I will store the DAGback file, which is the database as a files, Does anyone work with DAGback before?
Yes, I know.
Okay.
I used it, but not on Azure to deploy to Azure SQL, but to deploy to SQL Server.
Okay, that's great. So the DAGback, for people that you don't know, it just a text representing your schema, your initial lookup data, and so on. So, and again, part of the build is to, again, storing that on the Azure DevOps repository. Once this complete, then the CD is ready to run. So the last step in the CI is storing the package in the storage area. So anyone can remember what we store in the storage?
The generated Docker image
Okay, where we store that?
in the Azure Container Registry,
Great. And what else?
and also the YAML file for the deployment
Yes, that's right.
and the backpack file.
Yes, great. Thank you. And the DAC pack file. So we're storing that, but this is stored in different places, like the Docker image in Container Registry, Azure Container Registry, and the YAML and DAC pack files. It's stored on Azure DevOps repository. So the last step again for the CI is this step, and then the continuous deployment can start. So what is the first step of the continuous deployment? Again, it start downloading from the storage, pick up from the storage. Just imagine like any distributor or any, like a carrier company. You have the storage, you go for the storage, you just pick. So the pipeline will first start downloading the DAC pack on the release agent. And then once it have that, then it will use this DAC pack to execute the command, which is creating the database, which is described in the schema of the DAC pack, including also the initial data. Once this complete, it will also pick the YAML file, and then starting based on this YAML is to provision the pods and the deployment of the Azure Kubernetes service. As we explained, we have provisioned the AKS, but we didn't explain the actual deployment inside the Kubernetes. And this is YAML file is defined the manifest of the deployment for our Kubernetes. Also, the pipeline, it will just push the Docker image now, because now I have my pods, right? So the pods is configured and everything is fine. So now, sorry, I can deploy my Docker image to the pods on the Kubernetes. Once I have that, it will also, based on the manifest file, it will provision a services, which is a load balancer. And then I can go for the web browser and browse to my application, which is, again, it's very simple application. So this is the demo. So let's look at the demo. So here I will go for the Azure DevOps. So as you can see, I created here, I using here Azure DevOps sessions. And when you can see the project here, there is no project in this organization, because I want you to see an end-to-end. If I go for extension here, also there is no installed extension on this organization. So what I'm going is I will go for Azure DevOps demo generator. This website is generating, all the web applications, the YAML configuration, the pipeline, everything. So, we can just use that. Just sign in with my MS account. And then here I will choose the Azure DevOps session, which is my organization. Give some little time to load. And from here, I just give a name, MHC or my health clinic, and then choose the template, navigate to DevOps Lab, and go with Azure Kubernetes Service. So as we can see, choosing this template requires two Azure Pipeline 2 extension. The first one is Kubernetes extension, and the second one is replace token. So I will just again open these two extensions and installing them. So I will choose the organization and install that. I will do that with also replace token. So now the two extension installed, and I will unfortunately need to repeat these steps. but it's not that deal. So choosing the organization, type the name of my project, MHC, and choose the template. Navigate to DevOps Lab and choose here Azure Kubernetes Service. So as you can see now, it seems everything working fine, and then creating the project. So let's navigate to the project and extension so you can see that while it creates. So if we go for the extension, we can see that we have the two extension now. And this will create, again, as I told you, is all about creating the source code, the boards, the requirements, you know. This is just a sample application. So now it's completed. I don't need the demo generator anymore. And let's go for projects. And we can see that I have now the MHC, which is my health clinic project. If I open the project, and I will navigate to my Azure subscription. So as you can see, this is the current resource group I have. Just refresh. So the first step is I will run the shell, cloud shell. So here I can run it from here, and then here choose the organization. Then here I will create a storage. The first time you run a cloud shell, you just need a space where it can store temporary files. And again, because this will be cost for storing this information, so you need to create that, and it automatically creating that for you. So, but once you have that, you don't need to have that again. So this behind the scene, it will create the storage and the resource group for that. As you can see, we have cloud shell storage in West Europe. So now I can run the cloud shell. And again, I will start creating this component as we explained before. So the first step, again, by running this command, I will declare a variable called version, and to get the last version from Azure Kubernetes, So this will get the last version and then echo that so I can see the version if I want to do that. And as you can see, this is the version 1.13.5. Then I will start creating the resource group, which will hold all the cloud resources I'm going to have. So just as you can see, just create the resource group. As you can see also, by the way, you can use a cloud shell, you can use Bash or PowerShell. And for people that ask me about the language, again, which language, anything, you can, if you use PowerShell, for example, you can. For me, I really like Bash. I really like Linux syntax. This is why usually I use Bash. So anyway, creating the resource group, let's navigate to the Azure to see my resource group here. So created. And now I will just start creating the AKS here. So because now I have the resource group, I have the version, then I will just create using this command. So as you can see, I specify where is the resource group, what is the name of the AKS, and I have switch which called enable add-on monitor. I will show you why I enable the monitor so I can sorry, so I can monitor the Kubernetes infrastructure later. And then of course here I use the variable of version, and of course here is generated an SSH. So this will take some time. It could take around 15 or 20 minutes. And as you can see, this is very important. As you can see, it's finished service principal creation. So behind the scene, it creates a service principal on Azure. This is why it's very important that my account that I'm using on the Azure subscription has the enough permission to create service principal. And usually the service creation of service principal require a very high permission. This is why, for example, if you would like to try that, maybe if you have an Azure subscription with your organization, under the tenant of your organization, maybe you don't have the service principal creation, usually you will not have that. So it's better to have your own Azure subscription. And again, even you can have Azure subscription, free up to 30 days, and it's very easy to get that. So anyway, so this will create the service principal, and for people that they don't know what is the service principal, it's just a service account, the same idea of service account. So it's an account created for managing this, managing services later. So now it's still running, and as you can see, I will refresh here to just show you. So you can see that now I have this resource group created. I have also this resource group. I didn't specify this resource group, right? But this created automatically. But the AKS itself, it's created inside my resource group. And this is exactly the abstraction what I'm talking about. Like I will manage AKS as a platform as a service, PaaS solution from here. But for other component, of course, I can look at them, like monitoring or, like interacting with them. But again, I don't have to, like get the overhead of managing that component. Um, so this is the AKS. So this resource group will hold the monitor capabilities. And as we can see here, we have the log analytics workspace. And this one,
Mohammed,
yeah.
just a question.
May I ask for people that asking questions, say your name, where are you based? Like we just.
Okay, my name is Waji. I'm based in France.
Okay.
It's the first time I joined your webinar, and I'm very satisfied.
Thank you.
Thank you to you for your spending time and
Thank you.
and sharing your big knowledge.
Thank you.
Just my question is before in the shell cloud.
Yes, Cloud
Where
Shell, yeah.
cloud shell, yeah. The SSH key where is stored? But because in your home directory is in the cloud.
Yes.
Yes. How you can keep it? You keep your shell key, your SSH key.
Yes, you keep it safe, you mean?
Okay, because the key, the SSH key, is generated just for this deployment. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, actually, yes, the main idea here is this SSH key, it will be used, by the provisioning, So again, it's not like you are going, so this will be using, for how to say that. Again, you work with the AKS from abstraction, but the information will be there, but you are not going, to like taking that or so. Yes, it's part of the provisioning, but you are not going to interact with all the, this information.
Okay, but it's important to know where is stored everything. I don't pick it, but I don't need to keep it. But my question is just to know
Yes,
how it's
it's a good question.
the,
Actually, I don't know exactly where it is stored, I didn't look at that part, but yes, and of course it's, I mean, it's a good point. But what I'm saying at the end is like, is the main idea is it keep you from abstraction by, like it's like you are not going to have this SSH key and then, managing where to store it or
Okay, thank you.
no problem. Okay, so if I refresh now, as you can see, this will be the back end, for the Kubernetes, Azure Kubernetes service. So as you can see, this is all the component created automatically, just wait for the completion of the AKS. Now it's complete. So as you can see here, um, again, it's 3 resource group. This is my resource group where it has the AKS, and this is a resource group for the monitor capabilities, and this is a resource group for the backend. And let's refresh that by type. And as you can see, we have 3 virtual machine, which is 3 nodes that will work with, the AKS. Okay, let's now open my resource group, and then let's create the Azure Container Registry. So this command again, create Azure Container Registry, and give the location for the container registry. So this will be just the creation of the container registry. If I get back here, then refresh. So as you can see, the container registry created. This is a private container registry. Then get back to the Cloud Shell. And then again, here, I will get the client ID of the service principal. If you remember, when I create or when I provision the Azure Kubernetes service, there is a service principal created. So now I'm going to get the client ID of the service principal and also get the ID of the Azure Container Registry. The main idea here, will get the ID of Azure Container Registry. So I will have the ID of Azure Container Registry and Azure Kubernetes Service. So I can create a role, which the main idea here is to just give permission between the AKS and Azure Container Registry, so it can pull the images or interact with the repository of the images. So this will get the Azure Container ID, and then here I will create the role assignment, including or using the client ID of service principal and Azure Container Registry ID. So now I have the role assignment created. Let's clear.
Mr. Muhammad,
Yeah.
I want to ask a question.
Yeah.
You are making pull now from the Docker image to the public Azure.
Right now,
repository?
I'm not doing pull. I'm just provisioning the resources.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
This is why when I provision something, I just get back to the Azure portal so I can show you the provision of the items. But no, there is nothing. Just provision the item.
Okay.
Okay, so now I will just create or provision the SQL Server, Azure SQL Server, and of course I will give here the SQL, the name of the SQL Server, the username, and the password. This will create the SQL. Just refresh. So as you can see, just refresh will create the SQL. Just to give it the time. By the way, I'm speeding all of that because this is video, because just provisioning the AKS will take like 20 minutes or so.
Dear Mohammed.
Sorry?
Dear, can you please increase the size of the text in the console? I have some. Is it possible?
No, unfortunately, it's not possible.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. But I can again, all the command, I will give you the command. It will be on the video recorded after that. So you will get all the commands of that if you want to do that.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So yes, as you can see, the SQL created, and then I will create the database inside the SQL. So as you can see, just a database giving the resource group created, and here the SQL, the name of the SQL, and here the name of the database. So this will create the database, but of course empty database. So if we refresh, we can see now I have a SQL database here, as you can see. Again, all the provision, as you can see, I do all the provision, not all, but I'm doing so far these resources through the Cloud Shell or the command line. But again, I can have a full automated provisioning of the environment using the CD. Okay, remember, usually, as I explained to you before, it's very important to understand what it should be inside the CI and what is CD. So provisioning environment is usually the first step, before, like the first step in the continuous delivery is provisioning the environment. If you remember the slide when I talking about that. So all of that manual to keep this demo simple, So now I have the database. We can navigate to the database, and this is the server name of the SQL. So this is Azure Kubernetes, Azure Container Registry. This is the name of the container registry. So let's navigate now. Now I provision all the environment. Let me also to just show you so you can be, so people can. If you remember, now I completed all. I completed this part. Okay. So this is the part I completed using a Cloud Shell. And now we will start the part of the CI/CD. So now if I navigate now to my pipeline, and as you can see, this is, this is the build pipeline. So the first two tasks, this is the run service. So what I need here, I will explain to you everything here. So what I need here, this task is just for, let me first give the authentication, or maybe I should explain. The run services, we have from the beginning, 1, 2, the replace token, the first one. Is there any question? Okay, so the replace token, and this will replace text inside the app settings of the web application, because the connection string. Because for example, I created the SQL server and the SQL database with a username, SQL admin password. So I want to change this in the app setting of the web application, so I can use my new SQL server name and username and password. And this is a replacement token. The second one, it will replace the, inside the manifest file of the Kubernetes, it including where is the container registry, the private container registry. So I will replace that here, okay? This one is run service. This is just for pulling the image from the public registry and restoring all the third-party packages. The next one, building the service, this task is just building the image and tagging that image, of course, building the application first and building the image by deploying the application on that image. And we'll tag the image with the build number. This task, which is push, it will push the image from, now I have the image on my local, on the agent, the agent on the fly, and then it will push the image to the private registry. The last one, it will just look the service. This is just for a digital sign-in to, to make sure that, like you understand that, how to say that, it's like you confirm that you have this final version. So, you just don't confused about the updates. It's just making unique for your image. And then after that, this will copy the file. If you remember the publish artifacts, this will copy to from the source control, and then publish artifact will take these files, which is the YAML and the DAG pack, to store them on Azure DevOps. Okay. As now you get an overview about that. So what I'm going to do here in the run service, I just need to have, a communication between the repository and my Azure subscription, okay? Because I'm going to store the image on the Azure Container Registry. So what I need here is, again, choosing my subscription, as you can see, and then authorize. So once I authorize, this will create a service principal behind the scene and adding an endpoint on Azure DevOps to communicate with Azure Cloud behind the scene. Of course, you can do that manually, by the way. And once now, because I'm authorized, then I can choose here the container registry, and then I will do that the same for all of them. So now I give authorization for my build task. Let's go now to talk about the replacement token. Now, if I go for the variable, which is including in the build, as you can see, this is the name of the variables and the value. So it's a key name sorry. As you can see, it's a key and value. So here, the ACR, which is Azure Container Registry, and this is the name. Okay. So what I will just again is replacing that variables with the actual variables. Again, I name this container registry with a name, so I will use that here.
Hi, Mr. Muhammad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I can. Yes. Hi, Mr. Muhammad. This is Nan from India.
Hello,
I'm
Nan.
regular. I'm regular visitor of your blog, and fortunately got the opportunity to join the live webinar. I follow you on the Azure DevOps Lab.com. That the place where we publish a lot of good articles, and we really appreciate all of your help
Thank you.
towards the DevOps community. I have two questions regarding this one. The first one is, I've seen there are two things on the publishing the artifact. The first one is the publish build artifact and the publish pipeline artifact. So I was
Sorry,
confused.
one publish what?
I saw that there is two tasks on. If you go to the task, adding a task, you can see that two things are there. One is the publish build artifacts, and another is publish pipeline artifacts. The last one, yeah, the last one. No, go to task. The last one.
Yes.
After the copy. What's the difference between that and what should I use rather than not use publish pipeline artifact or publish a build artifact? So that's the first question.
Between here I'm using publish build artifacts. What's your question about?
My question is about I've seen that there is a one task, something called publish pipeline artifact. So what's the difference between that and which should I use? Should I use, because I've seen some of the blogs that mention that publish pipeline artifact is more faster, more uploading capabilities, kind of that. So I need a good
thank you.
From you are the guru of the DevOps. And second thing is that can you not use Azure Key Vault rather using the variables?
Of course. We will never using a plain, a value inside the variable. The best practice is using Key Vault. But again, this is just a demo, So yes, definitely we're using Key Vault for that. So this is to cover you the second part. For what is better is publish artifacts, build artifacts, or pipe. For me, I didn't know. I don't know. Again, for me, let me tell you how usually what I'm saying is, if we're talking about demo, for me, as long as it's work, that's fine. The most important is that you understand what's happened. This is the first part. The second part, if it is in reality, it's work. For me, usually I say like, test-driven development. It's mean that first I need to make it run. Once it's run, I just need to look at how to improve. Okay, so this is why again, like I didn't get a chance to look at what is the difference between them. But for me is I will usually again running and then improving that. So refactor, you're doing that now and then refactor later.
Okay. Thanks, Mr.
No problem. It's my pleasure. So yes, as you can see, I will copy here from the login server, just the Azure Container Registry. I put the container registry name, and here the name of the database. This is a SQL server.
Mohammed.
Yeah.
Sorry, and when you copied the name,
it's one mistake. Thank you.
You leave, yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, because I just recognize that, but yes, I will fix it, and you will not say thank you. What's your name? Where are you from? Where are you based?
Waji from France.
Okay, hello Waji.
Hello.
Okay, so yes, as you can see here, I will put the name of the actual SQL server. So I will just again replace that, and this is the running service that I talked to you about. So now let's go for the replacement token. So the replacement token, as you can see here, so you can see that it will look, this is the file that it will look at So here, this is the directory, and the file is app setting JSON. This is, the configuration file for the web application, which including the connection string, right? So let's navigate here so this is the configuration file, the connection string. So as you can see here, this is SQL Server, the name of because this is the variables, as you can see. So this will be replaced during the build, the pipeline running, the CD pipeline, sorry, the build pipeline running. So this will be replaced by the value inside this variable. And as you can see, we have here suffix, a prefix and suffix with this underscore, so I can, identify that. So this is for the web settings. And again, this is the suffix and the prefix, as you can see. So now I go for the variables, just again. So this will be replaced as I explained, also including the SQL username and the SQL password with the actual that I just put it them now. So this is for the app setting for the web. And then the second one is replace token. It will replace inside the manifest file of the Kubernetes, which including the deployment of the Kubernetes. And here I will replacing the name of the Azure Container Registry. So let me show you that inside this is the manifest file. So if you go down here, as you can see, this is the token for the ACR or Azure Container Registry, and I will replace that with the value, which the actual name. Okay. And then here, this is just the Docker Compose that including, the pooling the image, the ASP.NET, as you can see here. This is ASP.NET solution, and this is the working directory, restoring the solution, and here for the building the application. And here, let's navigate to the pipeline of the deployment. The previous pipeline, it was a continuous integration or the build, and this is the deployment. So as you can see, I have here 3 tasks. The first one is the DACPack, executing the DACPack file. So this will create the schema of the database and the initial lookup data. And again, I just also need to provision the authentication or give privilege from the DACPack from the Azure DevOps to the Azure portal. So it will need the same just to give authentication. And here, of course, the username and the password that will be used. And here, where is the DACPack file? And the second one here, this, as you can see, create deployment and services. In the manifest file of the Kubernetes is just a list of all the deployments that will be created and the services. In our case, we have 2 deployment as a 2 pod deployment, and 1 services is the load balancer. So this will be, so I need authorization, and this is the resource group. And of course, this is the AKS or Azure Kubernetes Service. Authorize also the container registry. And here, update the image, so I can push the changes. Okay, now I updated all the value. So what I'm doing now, as you can see, this is the Azure Container Registry. I updated that also for the pipeline for the continuous deployment. And now let's run the build. So what I'm doing now is run the build, not the deployment. And let's see what will happen. So again, I will use Ubuntu, a host agent, because again, this is .NET Core, so it can run on Linux or Windows. And as you can see now, the build is running. So let's navigate to the Azure Container Registry, so we can see, what is, if you remember, what the build will do is creating the image, put the application, tag the image with the build number, and it will push the image to the container registry. So I will show you here now when the image will be pushed. So here, this is the task of replace token. So this is the creation log services. So as you can see now, I have my image tagged with the build number. So the build is complete. So because I have the continuous deployment enabled, which means that once the build complete and the package is stored, then the pipeline of the release will triggered. So this is the pipeline, or the continuous deployment pipeline triggered. So as you can see, the first step is download the artifacts. Again, it will get what? Can you remember what is the artifacts? The YAML file, the DACPack file. Okay, it will not download the image because it will automatically push the image from the registry, the private container registry, to the Kubernetes service directly. Downloading the build artifacts from the Azure DevOps repository. Then here, can you see that this creating the database schema, and even this is data, by the way. Can you see that? Creation of foreign key, and so now it's complete for downloading the artifacts, and now executing. So now let's connect here. Now what I'm doing is just get credentials so I can log into the Kubernetes services. This is just like login. And now this returns this value. So now I have authorized to run kubectl get pods. So I get, the information or the metadata about the current pods running inside the Azure Kubernetes service. So as you can see now, I have two pods. So the first one, as you can see, this is MHC, or my health clinic backend and my health clinic front end. So this is the pods. And again, I will use kubectl get service for the front end, so I can get the IP using the switch watch. So I can get the IP of this pod. If you remember, each pod has a unique cluster IP, right? So I get now the IP of the front end pod. I will copy that. Of course, the public, not the private. So I can access that from external, not from, a virtual machine on the cloud, the same network. And then here, accessing the application. And as you can see, the application has deployed web application with database, and I can access that from. So.
Hey, Mohammed, I have one question.
Yes, can you share your name, please?
Yeah, my name is Sumit. I am from India.
Hello, Sumit.
Thank you for the great demo.
No problem.
So my question is regarding how did you manage the integration between the ACR and AKS? Means you are pulling the image from the ACR to AKS to running the pod. So how did you manage these integrations?
Yes, the integration has many parts. The first part, if you remember, when we created the role assignment between the AKS and if you remember this part, when provisioning at the beginning, I create a role assignment using the service principals and client ID and the ID of the Azure Azure Container Registry. So this this give the part of having this. So this will use this authentication between them, the service role assignments. from the pipeline by giving the authorization. As you can see, when I authorize, so the pipeline will have the authorized to interact with Container Registry and Azure Kubernetes Service.
I don't know, where is it playing from?
Sorry, is there a question?
Okay, thank you. I got it. Means when we first created the AKS cluster, that time you created the role between the ACR and the AKS.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is
Thank you.
no problem.
Yeah.
So now I will use kubectl, which is a command line, CLI command line. No problem. Let me. Okay. So I will use now the kubectl command line interface, which is a command line to interact with Kubernetes. So as you can see, it is not installed on my machine, so I will install the kubectl CLI. But in order to install that on the Windows machine, I need an Azure CLI first. But here, because I have, so this will install Azure Kubernetes kubectl command. Just yeah. So here I will just, I just need to add in the environment variable the path to the kubectl command line, so I can load it in any place from the command line. So okay, and now as you can see, if I run kubectl from any place, I can just load it. But of course, as I explained, we need Azure CLI first to be installed. Once I have the kubectl, this is a place where you can install Azure CLI first to install Azure kubectl CLI. Once I have that, I just need to give a permission by creating cluster role binding using to give a permission to access the dashboard of the Kubernetes. Once I did that, now I can access the dashboard of the Kubernetes. So this will now open a proxy tunnel between the Kubernetes, just to give it time to load. And as you can see now, I have the dashboard of the Kubernetes. And as you can see, it includes the deployment, the replica set, the pods. You can see I have two pods here, the back end and the front end. And because I created only one replica set from each pod, so I have only one pod for each part. But of course, you can define how many replica set for each. Okay, just to let you, the part of, as I explained before, about the monitoring, because we enable monitor capability. So now, of course, I can go to the insight, look about more information. I can go for getting, the insight about the running. For example, here, this is the nodes, the health of the node, and the container as well that is running. So all these capabilities, I can have it. Also, as you can see, I can very easily scale up or scale down the Kubernetes. For example, I can move it to 2 nodes, 3 nodes, 4 nodes.
Hi, Mohammed.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I am Ali from Dubai. I have a question. If I do any modification in my code, will it directly replicate in the pod as well? In this CI/CD, the entire process?
Okay. Yes. Again, this is what we call the configuration as code. Yes. Could you please mute your mic?
Yeah, sure.
So yes, this is what we call the configuration or infrastructure as code. Usually, you don't touch the environment. You don't do, you don't go for the environment and change that from the portal or from command line. You need to change first that you will change that in the YAML file. So for example, let me show you that. If we open, for example, the YAML file, So for example, this is the YAML file here. .docker compose. Here is the deployment YAML file. So for example, the replica set for the backend is 1. This is the backend. Okay. This is, for example, the pod for the front end, and the replica set is 1. So if I did that too, for example, I just edit and change that to 2, which means that I add one more replica set or one more pod for this front end, for example, or this back end, and then I will start, running the pipeline again. And this is exactly what we're talking about infrastructure as code, everything under source control. I can look at the history, when the change happened, who did the change, and so on. Okay. So as you can see, I can scale up the nodes very easily, either or scaling down. I can also update the version of Kubernetes. And this is exactly what I'm saying. It's like give you abstraction for interacting with Kubernetes as a platform as a service. And also I can run that from the command line. So that's it.
Muhammad, this is Muhammad from KSA. What will be the case if we have an update in our code and generate a new Docker image? How it will be updated in Kubernetes?
Sorry. When you yeah.
I'm asking if we are creating a new version of our application.
Mm-hmm.
So in the build pipelines and CI, it will create a new image.
Yes.
A new Docker image. How we will deploy it to Kubernetes?
It will using the same, you will have the same. I mean, as you can see, you will push the new image to the private registry, and then the deployment pipeline will pick this image and doing the same.
Okay.
So this is a command, as you can see, and I will put it in the video for that. And of course, your support is really needed. Upcoming session, there is next Saturday also, there is a session about open source, and this is for group B only, and this will be for group A for using, as you saw in this video, we're using the pipeline as a visual pipeline, but also it's recommended now, or it's not recommended, but I will say everything under source control, so we can use also the pipeline as code using YAML. So this session will be about that. Any other question?
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, great. Really, thank you so much, and for people that attending, and my apologies for people that they couldn't join for any reason, and yes. So, and look forward.
Hello, yeah, Mohammed, this is Vamsi.
Yeah.
I have just a question.
Yeah, sure.
Mohammed, so my question is like, if you have a new version being developed, and if the functionality doesn't work, how does it replicate to, revert back to previous version?
Okay, first, you should not reach this part, you should not reach this part, like you deploy and the functionality is not working, like I will say I have a concern about this scenario, but it's okay. Sorry?
Vas-y, viens voir. J'écris quoi? Vas-y, viens voir.
Yes. Okay. So the main idea here is you can, but again, once you deploy the application and for any reason you just can push the previous image. Okay. So you may have another pipeline, that again, but this will be workaround. I'm just giving you you will have another pipeline which it can just push the previous image, because part of the when you look at the manifest file is it pushes the latest image. So, and this is why it usually, when it push, I know the private registry, Azure Container Registry, has many images, right? So in the manifest file, we specify that we need to push the latest. So you may have another pipeline which just pushing the image, and you will specify which version exactly using the tag. But again, this will be a workaround. You can put it in a better scenario, but at the end, because you have a full automation, so you can, play with that as a way that you prefer. For example, if you have a fully automated test, so maybe, for example, after the provision, it run a fully automated test, and if this fail, for example, it just automatically, gets the latest version and just, understand the previous one, and then automatically roll back or push the previous. You can have a fully automated. Again, if you can do it manual, you can do it automated. And if it is automated, you can improvement. And this is exactly what I'm saying. Again, I'm not looking for improvement without having it first. I'm not looking for automation without doing it manually first. You're doing it manually, you're doing automated, and then you keep improving and the process, the refactor later. But again, remember, refactor, it's because you don't want to have a technical debt. Okay, great. Again, thank you so much for people that attending, and my apologies again for the situation today. And I think again, by keeping connected to the Facebook page, and again, we can sort out this kind of issues of the number. I will think about how we can get better, but I didn't expect to have all these people to join at the same time. So okay,
Mohammed.
Yeah.
Mohammed. Yeah, this is Salam from France. I was waiting on the Facebook page. I thought that it was be launched from there, so I missed the first 20 minutes. So is the recording will be available as well as the source code that you indicated
Yeah,
earlier?
everything will be available, and and please, everything will be recorded. Everything will be available. This is the first part, and even all the question, that most of people, I have a list of FAQ or frequently asked question, and I keep updated. So you will find where you can find the video, where you can find and I'm thinking even because again, I couldn't join the first part even myself because I'm expecting, there is 250 people, and even there is more people like send me emails that they couldn't join. So I'm thinking of maybe I should repeat this event because the problems that happen. It just again for me is now I reach the limitation of the number of 250. So how can I manage, to have like a situation like that, of course it could be one of the expectation is that many people, but I was not expecting that today.
Well, thank you. This is the second time I attended one of your webinars. They are very interesting and very useful.
Thank you.
So where can I get those facts and URLs?
Everything on the Facebook page, and if you got the notification, just scroll down on the Facebook page and you will find all the information, the code of conduct, the facts, the frequently asked question, get all the information.
Okay, and so for the next webinar, should we go to the Facebook or should we wait for a mail from your side to get the link for the
I
webinar?
prefer to use the Facebook, but again, many people, they still don't use it. So, and this is why I'm still using the email. And even for the email, I have problem because now, I send very huge number of emails. So I get blocked by even I got, subscription.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And
but I still do both. But I prefer that in the future, people will understand that our point of communication will be the Facebook. But until we get this to reach this point, I'm using both. But of course I prefer, because at the end, once the problem happen, I can just, for example, I just put the link of the meeting on the Facebook page and that's it. But now I need to send for 700 people the new email invitation. And once I did that in one email, it's not allowed to put more than 500 outside the organization. So I blocked the first time, so it's a very long scenario.
Yeah, I know all this stuff. I have faced also those same things with different stuff. But so This is what I thought. I thought that the link was on the Facebook. That was I kept waiting there.
No, actually, the link I sent it for people, and so
Yeah, but I was not watching my email.
yeah.
Anyway,
Okay,
no problem.
no problem. Thank you.